Okay, hello everyone. We're nearly ready. So, just for those who don't know me, I am Sassephoto, and we are all about education of wildlife and raptors. And today we have another exciting show. We're going all the way to Phoenix, Arizona. We've never been there, and we're going to meet a very interesting wildlife center there. And I think you're going to enjoy it. We're going to be live on several channels, so I'm just going to show you the movie in the back so you can enjoy this, and I'll go on silent in the meantime. And I'll see you in a little bit more than 2 minutes. Wonderful to have you all here, my friends. I can see a lot of you are here. I could see Kathy, Pacific West Kate, many others. Well, I'll greet you in a moment. So take care. See you in a moment. Okay, now I've unmuted myself. That's good. I wanted to say, wonderful to see you. So what you see in the background is a wonderful show here from the Liberty Wildlife Organization. We're going to talk tonight with Jan and Joe Miller, and it's going to be my pleasure to talk to them, and we're going to see some beautiful raptors live. I know it's a lot of stress to get raptors in for a show, so we're going to be very accommodating to their needs. So we're all very excited about it. You can see that in the background. I'm still running their project here. Okay, so let's get right to our guests. I just want to see if we can get them in live now. So 1 second. There we go. There we go. Let me just put it in. 1 second. So I've got Jan and Joe Miller there. Hey, Jan and Joe, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, so you have to speak up a little bit. It's wonderful. So, well, what beautiful birds have you got there?
Thank you. Can you hear us now?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead, please. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Talk a bit about what Liberty Wildlife is about, and of course, the beautiful golden eagle that you have right next to you, and also the bald eagle. Tell us more, please. Thank you.
I've got Liberty Wildlife has been around since 1981. We started out as a rehabilitation foundation by Dr. Kathy Orr. She actually started it in her backyard, and we've evolved over the years. We are a nonprofit 501(c), and we have turned into this beautiful facility that we now have so that we can educate as well. And we do a lot of education programs, and we also do conservation efforts to help the wildlife. And this particular bird that I have here, this is Sasse. She's a golden eagle. She's 7 years old this year. She's getting ready to eat. It's just a drumstick, so it's not too bad for people to view if she's ready. She came in from outside. In Arizona, we are still hot here. We're about 103 degrees outside, so we're waiting for her to cool off a little bit. And then she may eat a little bit for you. But Sasse, when you see her standing, you can see where she's standing on my fist and on the drumstick, how bowed her legs are. They're not straight like how Aurora's are. So when you're looking at her, part of the issue with her is she came in when she was about 3 weeks old. She was a tiny little, about the size of a football, nestling. And somebody said they found her on their front porch, which that's kind of unusual for her to be out of the nest that young. And somebody had her for long enough that they were not feeding her the correct diet. And these big birds like this, these raptors, all your birds of prey, they need to take in bones as well as the organ meat and the feathers and all of that for their nutrition. So she was fed buffalo meat and rabbit or liver. What was it?
Deer venison.
Deer venison. There you go. And so she was lacking the calcium, and within that short period of time, her bones were actually fracturing under her own weight because they grow so rapidly. Bald eagles and golden eagles, they'll grow to full size in about 15 weeks. So with as fast as she was going, her bones couldn't support her weight, and so they were fracturing. And we had issues with trying to get her to breathe well. Upon x-ray, she had 2 fractured legs, 2 fractured wings, and a fractured rib cage. And with as she grew, we had supplemented her and got her in a really good space, and she started to develop properly. And this leg is pretty straight. Her wings came out perfect because there was no weight bearing on those wings at the time. Her rib cage, unfortunately, is still crooked, so she has trouble taking in the air capacity that a golden eagle would need for flight. And with this leg as bowed as it is, the tendons are under stress right there. And at some point, she may have to have surgery on that leg when things go worse for her. So that's why she's in captivity. And she's become one of our education ambassadors so that she can teach people, you know, get them into the right place where they can be fed the right diet and be taken care of properly versus trying to raise them on your own. So, and then Joe can tell you about Aurora.
Aurora is a 17-year-old female bald eagle, and she was originally hatched up in Wisconsin. And in her nest, at 10 weeks old, girl.
Wonderful.
At 10 weeks old in her nest, she had stumbled over in the nest. Stick from the nest punctured the left eye. She's blind in her left eye, and without dual vision, she doesn't have the ability to hunt. No depth perception. Her ability to take prey, she might make 1 hit out of every 20, and that's not enough to keep her alive in the wild. So she was kept in captivity and trained for doing wildlife education. We take her out to do a lot of programs in the schools throughout Arizona. Liberty Wildlife, with its 40 volunteers in the educational staff and the 64 different birds we have, we go out and do over 700 school programs throughout the state of Arizona in a year's time. And she goes and does a lot of those. And then we also take her out to do a lot of things in honor of our veterans that have fought for our freedoms, because the eagle's a big symbol for them. Some of those older guys, when they're saluting her, they get a little teary-eyed that they're actually getting to see a live bald eagle up close.
Well, thank you so much, Joe, and thank you, Jan, for that wonderful introduction. So, I mean, it's quite amazing what you're doing. I remember I remember hearing that up to date you have taken in about 8,000 animals in total, which is absolutely stunning. And I also know, Jan, you're the medical coordinator, right? So I mean, I can hear the way you talk. They both talk that you're very knowledgeable. So of course, it's really interesting. There's so many questions that come to my mind, and I also want to encourage our listeners. By the way, I just wanted to introduce them to you. They come again. I see Kit is there, Jackie, Nature Lover, Ormum is there, Kathy Newton, Patty, Lady Hawk, very nice, Jackie Cameron. I saw Susan North. and so on. So you're all there, Mac Lady. Very nice to have you all on the show. I hope I didn't miss anyone there. So these are all very much nature and raptor lovers that we have on the show. So they really appreciate what you're saying. So the first thing that comes to my mind, Jan, is to talk about the heat. I mean, it's so incredibly hot. I cannot possibly imagine how raptors do in such weather. Can you give us a little bit about the background? What happens in nature? What happens in your center? And how all that works? Thank you.
You know, in nature, with the heat that we have, you know, they can get up in the trees where there's always a little bit more of a breeze for them to take care of. You know, we have a huge population of raptors that live here that are adapted to the heat. So they do actually work pretty well with it. You know, they can get up and they can fly on the thermals. They can go to higher elevations. Migration is a huge part of what they do. A lot of our birds, for instance, are bald eagles that are here in the summertime, are chicks that hatch. What they do, they hatch early here. We hatch them in about January, and they raise them so they're ready to go by June. And most of our bald eagle young head north, and they go to like Oregon or other places where it's cooler and the food supply is better. And then they start heading back this time of year right now. And they'll do this for about 5 years until they get a territory of their own. So the wild population handles the heat pretty well. The birds here at our facility, where they can't exactly get up into the higher air where it's a little cooler, we try to provide as much shade as we can. They have good shade. We have fans that are for the birds. Out here in Arizona, misters are a wonderful thing, except for the problem with that is we can end up with disease that's brought on by the moisture in the ground. So we do not have a misting system here. The misting system is basically us volunteers. We go out a couple times a day in the weather once it's above like 105, and we literally mist the birds down a couple times a day in the hottest part of the day. And we use ice blocks that we put in their water so that they can have cool water. And, you know, you go out there midday and you'll see almost all the birds will be standing in their water, you know, hanging out in the water and getting themselves cooled off the best that they can. So that's pretty much how we handle it out here in this lovely Sonoran desert.
And that's incredible. So when does the temperature finally drop below 100?
It's supposed to be below 100 now, but today we're a little warm. We're above normal, so.
Unreal, unreal,
yeah.
unreal.
And next week we should drop down into the 90s. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh. That's incredible. And Joe, that's you were saying some really interesting things here about sight. I'm particularly interested in in vision and so on, because my background is optics actually, and I'm fascinated by by the abilities of eagles to see. And of course we know a lot about their vision and so on. And you were mentioning that this bird is not able to cope in the wild because it simply has problems, probably to properly sight the prey and probably to make real decisions, right, about the three-dimensional the three dimensions of its prey and so on. So it would be quite difficult. I just wanted to say, when I was in Dutch Harbor in Alaska, I was absolutely amazed how eagles cope. I've seen eagles with completely broken beaks, with half their face missing and so on, and they seem to survive. So I'd just like to hear a little bit more on your experience, just regarding different injuries that bald eagles have and so on.
Yeah, I've got her up I have her up a little closer to the screen so you can see what her eye on the left side looks like. Her name's Aurora. Because she doesn't have the depth perception, that ruins it for her to be able to hunt. In the wild, they will get injuries. If it was an eagle that was already 5 years old and it injured an eye, a lot of times that bird can be released because it already has a skill set down. It's already learned how to hunt, and it will adjust for the lack of vision in the one eye. This one, because she was injured at a very young age, never got the ability to go out and learn how to hunt. That causes for her to try to learn how to hunt with only one eye. Would be very, very difficult for her. She'd most likely starve in the wild. We get them in with various injuries. Some of them are impact injuries. A lot of them, they collide with things. Once we get them in, we'll evaluate them in the medical wing and figure out how to get them fixed up. Liberty Wildlife, since 1981, has been able to repair and restore to the Arizona skies. 103 bald eagles are back out in the wild because of what happens here at Liberty Wildlife, for a second chance at life in the wild.
Wow, that's incredible. So if you've had about 8,000 animals, I mean, can you give us a little bit of an overview what different types of animals? Of course, you know, we're interested in the condor. I've never actually seen, I've only seen pictures of condors, but I'd just be interested to hear that. I just wanted to introduce some more of our viewers here. Klingen Warbird, thank you for the donation. That's very kind. Of course, I can see Sherry M. I see Osprey Mama. Sorry, I did miss you. Bill Kitchen. More and more coming. GoPro Creations. Very nice to see, my friend. You're all there. That's great that you're participating. Please put in questions. You know, put in lots of questions, because I'm going to be very quiet in a few minutes, and you'll take over the show, because it's all about your communication. Okay, your interest in in these raptors. So please go ahead and put your questions to my team, my wonderful team here, Nicole and Jan and Susie working. So just go ahead. Okay, so let's. Joe, let's talk a little bit more about the different, the different raptors you have, which ones get along, which ones don't, which are difficult, and so on. Go ahead, please.
Well, to help them cope with each other, the banks of cages outside, we've got one bank that's all eagles, one bank that's all hawks, one bank that's all owls, and another one that has the smaller raptors in it. So we don't have a bird in a cage next to a larger bird. It's just going to terrorize them every waking hour. So we keep them all separated. They each have their own enclosure. Very few of them are in together. And that way we can control who's getting what food. So we don't get a dominant bird in the cage that's taking all the food of the other three birds that might be with it. In the early part of the year, when we get in orphans, a lot of times we can put the orphans in with the adult birds, and they will foster parent the little birds. The owls will foster parent baby owls, so that the baby owls are growing up and looking up at an owl, feeding them, and they don't become imprinted on the caregivers. So it's a very delicate process that you have to manage, so that the new birds don't get into trouble like some of the older birds are.
And we typically do, the bulk of our busy season is from May until right now, September. It's starting to dwindle down, because we do so many orphans. It gets hot, birds bail out. If we could put them back in the nests, we would, and we can sometimes. But a lot of times these are in the middle of a shopping center. They're in people's backyards where they have dogs. And, we have very conscientious folks out there that actually, they'll be conscious enough to not let their dogs outside. We get these frantic calls sometimes from people saying, I have this bird that fell in my yard. It's an owl, and I haven't let my dogs out in like 8 hours because it hasn't gone away. Can you guys please help us? And, of course, there's a mom owl sitting right in the tree that's going to nail the dog once it comes out, because the baby's just sitting on the ground in their backyard. In those situations, we do end up bringing the bird in. And as Joe had mentioned, we have several groups of foster parents that help take care of these offspring so that they can grow up and be released successfully and know that they are great horned owls or red-tailed hawks or Harris hawks. So it's kind of we're very, very lucky that we have the amount of foster parents we do that help take care of these babies, and the resources don't have to go to the volunteers wearing camouflage and using puppets and things like that, which if one's injured, we do have to do that when it stays inside and can't be with the rest of them. But most of them, we do very well with our babies and have a very good success rate with them. So.
The young raptor from 3 weeks to 10 weeks old, in its head, it's trying to figure out what it is. If it has humans handling it, it'll start to decide, that must be what I am. It takes care of me. So we like to try to separate those young birds from the volunteers at an early stage and put them in with their own kind. And that way they imprint on what they are. They'll understand what they are as they grow up. So it makes them a lot more successful when we can release them back to the wild.
And as far as like what's come in, we actually have close to 8,600 animals right now. And, you know, we're going from lizards. We just got a spiny lizard this week. We have hummingbirds all the way up to the eagles. And as you had mentioned, the California condor. We are the only rehab facility in Arizona that takes in the injured California condors from our state. You know, so we're very fortunate about that. And they're pretty amazing, impressive animals.
In the northern part of the state, we got close to 74 California condors. And on a typical day, a condor might forage as much as 200 miles looking for down prey or food that they can feed on.
Thank you. That was a very elaborate question. Now we got lots of questions coming in, so I'm handing over to the audience now. So the first question comes from Jeff Williams. How much do they eat in an average day? I think that's very interesting. And maybe I can just add, how does it actually depend on the heat? Okay, so that's Jeff Williams. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, they do decrease what they eat in the heat a little bit. In the winter, they actually want to bulk up and carry more weight with them. So when you're looking at these eagles right here, a wild eagle will eat a lot more at one sitting because they're out expending the energy flying, and they don't actually eat every day. Where ours get to eat every day, we feed them in the summertime between 1/4 pound to no more than 1/2 pound. And in the wintertime, they'll get up to 1 pound of food a day.
A lot of that has to do with the cold weather at nighttime. The bird of prey outside at nighttime in the cold weather will shiver and shake and exert energy to keep themselves warm at nighttime. And that's why they go through so much more food during the colder winter months.
Very good. Okay, the next question is from Dina Jolly. What's the wingspan? And I think maybe just to elaborate a little bit, take the golden eagle, the bald eagle, and the condor. Maybe that's a good point.
And you see, Aurora is actually a northern bald, which is larger than our southwestern balds. So when you see her wingspan is actually about a 7-foot wingspan. Where Sasse, she's an Arizona bird, and she's a northern Arizona bird. She has about a 6-foot wingspan, 6.5 foot. Now the California condor, when you see those guys flying over, they look like a little mini airplane. They're 9-foot wingspan, which is incredibly impressive when you see these guys in a fly cage and they're flying over you. And that's a typical bald eagle bugle, if anybody's asking. What you hear on TV is a red-tailed hawk that they often dub in because they don't think that's a majestic enough sound for an eagle.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Next question. That's an interesting one from Patty. How did you get started with this important work? Good question.
I drug him in. I drug him into it, but I just had a big interest in wildlife, and there was a coworker that had found Liberty Wildlife a long time ago, and I started out by volunteering and volunteered for a long time, and finally was hired on, and have been here ever since 1987.
Oh wow, you have a lot of experience. Next question from Helen Botses. The bald eagle often seems to be looking down. Is that behavior due to its eye injury, or is it trying to focus on something? That's a great question.
Her behavior of looking down towards her feet is a little bit of her trying to retrain me. She's signaling me. She's looking at her feet going, "Where's the food, Joe?"
And I have the food right here.
So we're gonna give her a big chunk to chew on here.
So what are you giving her at the moment?
Chicken drumstick.
Chicken drumstick. Okay.
We're literally the bird.
We're keeping it clean for the audience.
We just didn't want to put something big and bloody up there where everybody's going to shut us off. So,
and Jackie Porter is asking, hi Jackie, what is the rarest, strangest bird animal that you've ever taken in over the years?
We've had a couple endangered birds. We've had a Yuma clapper rail. One of the strangest ones that I've had was a snipe, which there really is a bird named a snipe. And the Caspian tern came in this year. We had a Caspian tern.
The greyhawk.
So, yeah. And of course the California condors, which are, amazing to see.
Yeah, we've got lots of pictures that Nicole's put in, so we'll go to that later. because I think it'll be interesting to hear your comments on that. So let me just continue here. Do any of the, Patricia Nimick is asking, do any of these raptors breed in captivity?
A lot of raptors will breed in captivity. We ourselves do not have a breeding permit. You have to have special permits for that, so we don't allow breeding.
We focus mostly on training them for doing wildlife education. If we put them into a captive breeding program, that creates a situation where that raptor that you put in a lot of time training, that you can't use it for about 8 months out of the year because it's either broody or it has young. It doesn't want to separate from the eggs or the young, so that part of the training, a lot of that you have to rework when they're all done with the young. So it sets you back quite a ways to put them into captive breeding. So ours are trained more as teachers rather than as being mothers.
Okay. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, next question, Osprey Mama. Hi, Osprey Mama from Florida. Thanks for the donation, by the way. Nice to see you. How are you funded? That's a great question. And what about window air conditioning units for eagles? That's a great question. Go ahead.
They actually don't like being indoors that much, and the window air conditioning units out here wouldn't work so well. We can use swamp coolers. It's something that we use out here, but in our monsoon season where we're very humid, we cannot use them. You know, so we've pretty much stuck with what we can, and a lot of that is funding, as she brought up. We are privately funded. We do not get any federal or state grants to help us with what we do. It's all private donations from individuals, and you know, we can't be more thankful for what they've done and how they've helped us. But you know, it's something that's a constant need, and we always need more and more donations to feed these animals and care for them.
Some of that heat that they have to deal with and the cold that they deal with is part of their natural environment. The animal stays healthier to be in their natural environment.
Well, I'm amazed. It's very, you know what's amazing, what always amazes me in the United States, there's so many people with good hearts. And it's very nice to see that it's all private funding. Unfortunately, federal or probably state funding must be nearly impossible nowadays. So it's very nice to see that initiative. Thank goodness we have such good-hearted people. So I'm very happy to hear that. Next question from Susan North. So how many different type of rescues are kept? And they are kept obviously with their own species. I think, Joe, you alluded a bit to this, but maybe you can just explain a little bit more.
We have 64 different birds that are trained to the glove for doing wildlife education, and they're all housed separately so that we can control what's going on there. They behave a lot better if you're not putting them in a situation where they're being aggravated by maybe the bird next to them. The group of birds that we have deal very well with going into the schools. You take a long time and acclimate them to being around people so they get used to it. And that way, when you've got them in a classroom full of kids, they've gotten pretty used to it. It's kind of a job change deal because they can't operate as a wild animal. We give them the job change, and now they operate as teachers or educators.
And to add to that, on the rehabilitation side, we have 75 enclosures back there that are full right now. We're at full capacity pretty much with birds that are in rehab, and as they were stating that we put the species together, so that's pretty much how we have it. I mean, we have great horns in with great horns and different flight cages, and everybody's in together to avoid any kind of conflicts. And they do very well together when they're young, especially. They don't know any different. We don't have territorial issues. With our education birds, you begin to have some territorial issues that cage is their cage and they know it. So you don't want to mix those guys together at all.
Right, and that brings me to the next question here. Let's see, where were we? Yes, from Estelle Mann. How old is your oldest rescue?
Oh, our oldest rescue on the premises right now is 32 years old. We have 2 of them right now that are 32. 32,
and that compares with out in nature of half that age, or what is the typical average?
Some actually can make it that long, but the majority of them do not. It's about half of that. And the 2 that we have, one is a red-tailed hawk and the other one is a turkey vulture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's Lady Hawk. Wonderful to have you here, Lady Hawk. How much, how much do the eagles weigh in Arizona? A great question. Are they somewhat smaller than northern eagles? I think, Jan, you already explained something about that, but maybe in general, there's a comment about different species of birds and how they compare.
Yeah, there's actually a biological reason for it. It's called Bergmann's rule or Bergmann's law. And birds that are in the hotter climates are all smaller. Like our coyotes are a lot smaller than you would see in Montana and colder climates. The belief is that they just don't need to have that kind of size to back on the fat to keep themselves healthy for the cold winters. Out here, it's we don't need to have that much weight. So like our bald eagles here, the males can range from 6 pounds to 8 pounds, and the females are about 7 pounds to 9 pounds. Where if you go up to Alaska or some of these colder areas, they're going to range from, the males will be 7 to 9 pounds, and the females can be up to 16 pounds, depending on which state you're in and how big that particular bird is.
Here in the desert, a female bald eagle will have about a 6.5-foot wingspan. Up in Alaska, where they grow to be their largest, a full 8-foot wingspan on an eagle in Alaska. And the golden eagles and bald eagles, for their environment, as it gets colder, they both get larger to deal with living in the cold. The cold can't get to them all the way. Little organ freezes out.
Yes, right. So there's a tremendous size difference. I've seen that in Dutch Harbor. I was amazed how large the eagles are there. So that's a very good answer. Very interesting. So next question here from Terry Singer. Will these birds ever let their handlers touch or pet them? How do they ever show affections to their handlers? A great question. It's more about your relationship.
They do. Actually, they do bond with their handlers, with specific handlers. One of the things that we like to do here is we do like to, as they're getting used to us, we will do things like touch their ankles and their feet and their beaks so that they get used to us being able to examine them without having to grab them. So that's one of the issues. And then we do this where you can rub their belly right here, because what we're doing is we're feeling the keel, which is where they carry their fat, so we can tell if they're losing weight or not. They're not very affectionate. They're not like a parrot or a dog. They don't show you a lot of affection. If a particular bird is bonded very well with somebody, they will, during breeding season, show courtship behaviors and certain, things like that. Joe, actually, Aurora really likes Joe, and she likes to build nests with Joe and lays eggs with Joe, and it's kind of unusual, but that's how she is. And so it just depends on the bird and how much they get adapted to it. We actually like to have multiple handlers for each of our birds, because you don't want something to happen to somebody and not be able to use that bird again when it's had all that training and they have such a good purpose, educating and working with people.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and it's very interesting how you talk about the character of each bird. Now we come to the main question actually here from Patty D. Question: How do you see it? Well, do you see a lot of instances of lead poisoning? That's probably a big topic.
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, we did a small study where we tested about 5 different species of raptors that were coming in just for regular issues, whether it was broken bones, impact injuries, just various reasons why they were down. And every single one we tested actually did have lead in it. They weren't at toxic levels, but they all did contain lead in them. So they're coming across it in different ways. We do see a lot of lead poisoning. We see it almost in all of our eagles that come in that are down, have some lead poisoning to them. Not always at toxic levels, but at least half of them. And all the condors pretty much that we see come in because of lead poisoning. So, it's kind of an unfortunate situation.
Well, that's absolutely shocking. Just a quick question from me: how many condors are there now? Do you have any estimate in number?
They have. I mean, they're up to number 800 and something, but I know that that's not how many are in the wild, because a lot of those guys have passed on. And I think that they have about. They probably have about 200 actually flying free in the United States between California and here. And, it's not a high number for a bird that could actually do very well on its own in the wild.
Okay, thank you. Next question here from Where was I? Yes, Scott Fitchett. Can you understand the sounds that they make right now? The different, I mean, the sounds. How does it correlate to the behavior?
They do have. Hi, Scott. We know who you are. We do have. They make different vocalizations depending on the species, and it just depends on, you can tell when they're mad, when they're angry, or when it's just kind of a social talk that they make. It's different noises that they make.
Very good. We got lots of questions. Oh, and by the way, do stop me when I know that you have other errands to do today. So just cut me off because there's so many questions coming in. Okay, and I also want to take a little bit of time going through your pictures later. So let's carry on with another 10 questions or so, and then we'll go through all the beautiful images, and then I think that'll be very interesting for the audience. So next question here is from Sherry M. How long is the imprinting process? These two raptors seem very comfortable with humans. After injury and becoming educational raptors, will they eventually imprint on humans?
They don't imprint on humans once they're past that stage. The stage is when they're very young. As Joe had mentioned earlier, it's between, depending on the bird and how fast they're developing, there's this critical moment when they're in the nest where they're imprinting. Aurora, for instance, as comfortable as she is, she does very well. But she was 10 weeks old when she got injured. So she knows she's a bald eagle. And she acts like a bald eagle. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of man hours, and a lot of time to get these birds to where they are comfortable in these types of situations. And we work on that daily and try to get them to a point where they are comfortable. And some birds never get comfortable with it. Some of them are kind of comfortable with it, and they only do specific programs, or they're on display here only. But occasionally you get the really, really strong-willed ones like Aurora and Sasse here, who, they handle it pretty well. So if they've been raised in the nest past that imprinting stage, it's called habituated, not imprinted. So there's a difference. They do know that they are a bird of prey and what they are.
The birds that we handled they go through a process where we gain their trust. It's called manning. So all the birds that are handled from the glove are referred to as manned birds.
Right. Yeah. I'm just a quick comment here on Janine Warrington. So on the right hand side, which is they're facing the other way, is the left hand side. So that is on the right hand side looking from the camera. That's the golden eagle. On the left side you have the bald eagle. So the question was related. When does their white head change? So it's not the golden eagle that changes the head color. That's the bald eagle you see on the left, and that typically happens in the third year. Their head slowly changes, and the fifth it becomes very apparent, and so on. So I don't actually know if that's any different in captivity. Joe, can you comment on that?
Head color change for a bald eagle. Bald eagle starts out with a dark beak, dark head, and dark tail for the first 3 years. And at 3 years old, they start into a transition. And by the time they hit 5 years old, they've got the white head, white tail, and yellow beak. And that signifies to the other eagles that they are of breeding age. Males and females look identical, other than that the females are a whole third larger than the males. Hawks, owls, eagles, and falcons across the board. That's the rule of thumb. When you get back in the other birds like ravens and herons, then you're back to where the boys are bigger again. It's called reverse dimorphism, and it has to do with, for the biggest part, keeping the males smaller, quicker, and more agile, because their only job is just to go out and fly and collect food. If you're smaller and faster, it's a lot easier to get that job done. So evolution's taking care of that for them.
Right, and Sherry M has a very interesting question here. What do you do when your capacity is full? Do you work with other facilities?
We have not hit that point yet. So hopefully, we're already actually building. There's 8 more cages that are going in the back half. We have room to expand here. So, funding keeps coming and things like that. We can continue to expand, and hopefully we never have to turn any away. And if we do have to, yes, we can work with other organizations that are locally here in Arizona.
If you'd like to send us funding, you can find us online at libertywildlife.org. We'd love to have anything you could send our way. It'll help us continue the work of saving these fine animals and being able to return them back to the wilds of Arizona.
Yes, absolutely. And we put, Joe, we put the link below. So anybody who wants to help is very welcome to help. All the links are there. So any donation is always helpful. It's really wonderful. Okay, next question. Yeah, how long do these eagles live? The ones that you have there, what's their life expectancy? That is Sharon, I can pronounce that, Monane. Momane. Oh gosh, I think I mispronounced your name, so I think it's Sharon Momane is asking, how long do these eagles live that we're looking at now?
Our two oldest eagles that we have here at Liberty that were our starting, they're the first two that we got. Our male golden eagle was an adult when he came in 1989, and we believe he's probably at least above 30 years old. And Liberty is 30 this year. Aurora is 17 this year, and Sasse's only 7. So hopefully, you know, we can see 40 years old in some of these eagles that we have here at our facility, that they can keep going on. But you know, typical, like we, you know, even though they have the care that we give them, they have meals, they have medicine, you know, things like that, they do get diseases that are similar to us because they do get old enough. So we will see cancers in some of our birds, cataracts in some of our birds, you know, things, a lot of them get arthritis where their injuries were. You know, they can get very stiff with arthritis, and we can give them anti-inflammatories and things to keep them comfortable. But, you know, sometimes the injuries take its toll on them sooner than we would like to see. But we've been pretty lucky. We've had a lot of our birds make it to a pretty good old age. So it's kind of nice to see.
Next question from Northeast Florida Eagle Camp. Hi, Gretchen. Wonderful to see you on the show. So Northeast Florida nest, the ones who don't know, that is the #1 nest that starts off the eagle breeding season, usually in December. So all the eyes are again on Northeast Florida. And she comes up with a great question here. Are you aware if Goldens and bald eagles ever crossbreed? Reminding me actually of the question that we had, because we in British Columbia, we actually saw for the first time a juvenile, and that is believed to be a crossbreed between a Steller's eagle and a bald eagle. So quite an interesting question.
The Stellers and bald are both fish eagles, so I could see that happening a little better, but golden and bald usually do not. I've never heard of an incident where they've crossbred. They have different hunting styles, they have different territories, so they're not often found together, except for in the areas like in Canada, sometimes in Alaska, where you have a lot of food that's available and they'll feed off the same thing. But Goldens have a completely different hunting style. They like the open plains and bigger, wider areas and cliffs, where the balds are usually around water, within a mile, right, Joe?
Within a mile or two, they'll nest near the water. Bald eagles and golden eagles in the wild do not get along very well. They're not very friendly with each other. So in the wild, a lot of times a golden eagle may come into a bald eagle's territory, and they'll go out to escort him away. They don't like the golden eagles being around where they're nesting or got their chicks. Sometimes they'll grab a chick and destroy it.
Yes, and I've actually seen some juvenile golden eagle. They're quite dominant, at least what I've seen in our area around Vancouver. Very seldom do we have a golden eagle, but when we do, they actually are quite aggressive towards bald eagles. You know, the usual way is that when a juvenile bald eagle lands, they displace the eagle, whoever is there. But I've seen with a golden, it wouldn't budge. So very interesting. So that's just my quick comment. Okay, next question. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, Wobby's QQ is asking, do you get the community involved when you do a release back to the wild?
Not every time, but oftentimes we do, and we like to do it a lot of times with the person that actually found the bird when we can release them, and they'll get their neighbors and their friends involved, and we try to get them back out.
Recently, we made a trip up to outside of Flagstaff and met with the couple that had found an eagle, and they got a hold of the game ranger, and he came and collected the eagle and got it to us. We had the eagle for 8 months, yeah, and he was all well and ready to go back to the wild. We contacted all 3 of those people, and they met us there and got to open the carrier and do the release of that bird back to the wild. They got to help see the other end of how that all finishes up, full circle of the bird being injured, the bird being rescued, and then the bird being returned to the wild after all the rehab work is done.
Very good. My goodness, you really seem to travel a lot. Here's Susan North again. Hi, Susan. Yeah, are there a lot of wounded animals from hunters? I mean, we've talked about lead poisoning. That's, of course, the more indirect way. But I think she's alluding to the possibility of direct injuries from hunters.
You know, actual hunters, most of the time, hunters are very responsible, and they are not out there intentionally shooting any wildlife. Many hunters are very much conservationists, and they do enjoy the wildlife that is out. In fact, some of our birds that are in very remote areas have been found by hunters, and they'll leave their site and get to a road where they have service and call and have the bird rescued. Typically, a lot of the gunshot birds are not by hunters. They're just by people who are out shooting off because they can. We tend to see a big increase in gunshots from air pistols a lot after Christmas, when it seems like that seems to be a good gift to give to children. And you know, I think people they just don't know any better, and they just see something that they can shoot at, and they try to shoot them. So the only ones who end up typically getting hit by a hunter is if they're dove hunting, and you have bird hunting hawks that are out there in the field also hunting those same birds. But again, many times that's happened, and they see what happened, and they bring that bird to us. So, you know, we really don't see a lot of hunters that are irresponsibly out there just shooting birds of prey.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting, Jan, that you say that. It's the same experience we have here. Actually, hunters are often very responsible. But it's true that unfortunately, and we've seen the same. I've actually seen that in Washington State, exactly with an air gun, exactly what you were describing. It's highly irresponsible and sad, but it happens. You know, we have those with geese and you know, with many different birds.
Yeah, I think people think it's a pest bird. They tend to think. Right.
Oh, Terry is saying, Terry Singer, are you open to the public? Would love to visit.
We are open to the public. We are open on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 11. Actually, right now it's 9 to 11 just because it's so hot. But about October, I believe we're going to switch it over. It'll be 10 to 2. And they can check our website to make sure when it switches over.
During the open hours, they'll put on a wildlife program with several of the animals. And they'll also bring out one of the eagles and feed the eagle while they talk to the guests about what we do with eagles and how an eagle operates and all kinds of eagle type of things.
Very good. Joe, I think it's your turn again to come a bit closer. Dana Steele, thank you. Dana, oh my goodness. I'm learning Dana. It's Dana, not Dana. Okay, Dana Steele. You see, I got it right for the first time. Thank you for the donation, by the way, and the same to GoPro Creations. Thanks for your donations. She says, can you please bring the beautiful Aurora bald eagle closer so we can have a closer look again, if possible, because of the sun from the back. There you go. There you go. I'm just going to put the put this out of the way so you can see it completely. Much more beautiful. Isn't that a beautiful bird? Wow, very nice.
He's pretty well behaved.
Pretty well behaved. I'm really surprised that they do this. Wow, look at that. You even get a flight. Oh, I can see you have a lot of experience with these birds. It's quite incredible, quite incredible. Very nice. Thank you so much. Okay, next question now. Pacific Northwest Kate, my Vancouver wildlife woman here. They're fantastic. Have any birds hurt handlers? Not just talon scratches, but aggressive behavior, or isn't that an issue? Great question.
You know, when you're first working with them and when you're working with wild ones, yes, we do have incidences where, you know, we get footed. The foot is the business end of these animals. They tend to bite once you have their feet, you know, and as far as the birds of prey go. So, you know, I mean, accidents happen and stuff happens. We know it's a risk that we all work with, and, you know, we be sure to clean it up good and be good. And, you know, you never take it out on the animal because the animal is just doing what it naturally knows to do. And so, you know, you just kind of go with it.
Very nice. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to blend in some of the images that you have here. Maybe if you don't mind, there's probably a lot of sound here and the noise in the background from the just listen in here. Yeah, we'll just wait for a second because of course that is that is typical for, there's a medium voltage pole. We see 3 transformers here. And there is a bird just leaving. We'll just wait till the sound stops. The movie's over in a moment. There we go. So could you just please explain what we're looking at here?
That was actually a raven that was taking off. It has a nest in a very dangerous position. I'll let her finish. But she's telling you the story. But no. But that nest right there, the transformers and everything in there, that particular pole and line is not bird guard protected. And what that means is they don't have the right insulation on it. And so that nest where it's sitting can catch fire at any point in time. And we work very closely with our local electric companies to help these situations and retrofit. And so this right here is where the linemen are out there. They're going to de-energize that line. The ravens fly off, and what our biologists do is they go up there, the linemen get the birds or the babies that are in that nest or the eggs, and we sit down and make sure that they're okay health-wise. From there, they stay until they get warm. They take that nest down. They try to keep it whole, and what they do is they put it in a fiberglass nest platform that SRP or APS they've designed, and they retrofit it. They put it elsewhere on that pole or a pole that's next to it that's safer. And then our biologists go out, they stay there, everybody leaves, put the nest up, and wait for those parents to come back to that pole. If they don't come back for whatever reason, then our biologists are there, they call them back, they get the babies, and they bring them in so that we can care for them. But these types of situations, they can cause large outages, and it'll kill all the birds. So it needs to be moved no matter what. And it can cause large power outages for complete neighborhoods and, counties, depending on which pole it is. So they have to be very proactive with that and take care of that situation. That's part of our research and conservation department.
Yeah, recently I gave a broadcast. I'm actually an electrical engineer, so I know these type of installations very well, and I see a very, for us, unusual geometry here, because you can see the phase separation between the middle, because it's not symmetrical. They actually put the 2 phases very close together, which means that the wingspan of even a raven can easily cross this. This is exactly the problem. I don't know why they would do this and not do it more, at a larger distance. You typically have 15,000 or more volts coming across those, and that is an instantaneous death for a bird who crosses any of those 2 phases. If they sit on 1 phase, it's okay, but as soon as they cross 2 phases, they get electrocuted, and as you correctly say, it gives a temporary outage, and it can cause a lot of havoc. So I'm a little bit puzzled. You're absolutely right. The way to improve this is to put sleeves over, insulation sleeves, which they typically do, especially where they nest. But yeah. I'm still surprised at the at the distance between the phases. I've not seen that here. So anyway, that's probably something you have more.
A lot of the poles are older as well. All the new poles that are putting up do have the bird guard already on them. So they are really proactive. If we get a bird or they get a report of one that's up and it does get electrocuted, that's when they'll go in and they retrofit those poles. So yeah, I'm not sure what that particular, why that's laid out the way it is, but.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a quick question here. 2 more questions. Hi, Kathy Newton. Do you allow people to hold eagles using the glove? She wants to know.
Federal permits for us to house and use the eagle forbid us to let the public make contact with the bird. It's just really not safe. If the bird doesn't know the person very well and grabs a hold of them with the beak, it's bad. If they grab a hold of them with the foot, it's a whole lot worse. So just for the safety of everybody involved and for the comfort of the bird, put them on the glove of someone they don't know isn't really very comforting for the bird in the overall aspect of things.
Good. And Jerry Blankenberg is actually asking right here, will power poles be protected in the future? I think, Jan, you already answered that question. So you're working with them together, right? So, okay. Anyway, let's go to the next. What picture are we looking at here? So we'll go through all these incredible images now.
That picture right there is one of our other eagle handlers, Max, and he's with Sonora, a different bald eagle. And that was a presentation he was doing for our annual baby bird shower, which is our, when we're getting ready to kick off our baby bird season with all of the orphan birds, where we ask people to bring in bird seed and paper towels and things that we need, as well as monetary donations.
Right, next picture. Oh my goodness, what is this?
Our biologist that is going into a burrowing owl burrow. We actually use a scope. We have to go in there and scope it when there is construction, which is one of the bigger issues out here because we're still sprawling out quite a bit. We have to be sure the construction company is responsible for, and we help them to make sure that these burrows are empty. If it's occupied, they're unable to do it unless they get the correct permits, and then they have to have us go in and remove those owls. And this one, I'm not sure if it's just viewing for it to clear it, or if we were actually removing them in this situation.
Incredible. Next picture.
That's a baby burrowing owl.
Beautiful. I've seen them in Florida. We don't have them here. So, okay, next one.
That is a Harris hawk, which a lot of people who do not live out here in the Sonoran Desert would not recognize. They are a communal hawk. And they are one of the worst ones we have issues with on the power lines because they are family driven and they're communal. So they live in family groups like a pack of wolves, and you can have several of them on one line and touching each other, which farther spans the risk of them becoming shocked or electrocuted.
Right. And here is something magnified. I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here.
That's a hummingbird that again is in a substation. That's in a.
Oh, in a sub. Oh my goodness, a hummingbird. Good grief.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and there's another one. This is so typical, right?
Yeah, and see that's a Harris hawk up on top. You see where the
Harris hawk, yes.
Yeah, so they're going down in there. So it's a little bit of a interesting nest site. That had to be.
Oh my goodness, this is like the worst you could possibly do. Oh my goodness.
And we get a lot of those. So that's a really bad setup. You know, unfortunately here in the desert, we do not have a lot of trees, and power poles are the high point, and that's where they tend to nest. And unfortunately, the transformers make a nice flat surface for them to build all those sticks up on. Yeah, you can see where that's just a little scary.
Yeah, and the moment it gets wet, it's terrible. Wow.
Correct.
Okay, next one. Oh, is that the burrowing owl again?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the burrowing owl burrows, and I think they've got one that they're putting in that artificial burrow system that was built for it.
And this
lineman removing. See the little? I think those are red-tailed hawk chicks.
Red-tailed hawk chicks, right?
So that they can move that nest, and that one would have been put on a platform once it was moved and left out there, and I believe that was a successful nest move.
And this one.
That's those babies. That's those same little babies in the box.
Yeah, that gives a question here from Maureen R. Are there any protected areas for burrowing owls in Arizona?
Everywhere is protected actually for them. So, you know, where they're at, that's why they have to go out and get the correct permits in order to be able to remove them. And then we find areas, if they have to be placed back out, we try to find other safe areas and work with different communities. Like we worked with the Indian community to actually be able to put burrows out on their land, you know, which is going to be not developed. And they were open to it. And so one of the times we were able to put burrows out there and relocate burrowing owls out there.
And now we're looking at
American kestrel.
American kestrel, yes, exactly. Beautiful.
And that was a female. They're one of the few birds of prey that you can tell the male and female apart. And that's a burrowing owl.
Ah, so beautiful. Okay. Gosh, you've got so many pictures. Next one.
That one there, that's our 32-year-old red-tailed hawk. That's a coma.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, he's a great boy.
Oh, wow. Nice picture. It's long.
Great horned owl.
Yes, great horn. Yes, beautiful.
And there's Joe and Sonora.
Sonora is one of the only eagles that we know of in the whole world that rides on board an open train. And here in Arizona,
Oh, an open train.
she rides on the open cars of the train. She's been doing it for over 8 years. In December, it will be 100 trips on the train doing wildlife education for all 440 people on board the train while it's moving.
That's incredible, absolutely incredible what you're doing. I really admire that. Fantastic.
This is Aurora in this picture, and she's riding on board a perch on top of a fire truck in the Fiesta Bowl parade that she'll be in again on December 29th this year. That'll be nationally televised. She belongs to everyone as an American citizen, so we like to get her out in front of the public so they can see just how beautiful and valuable these animals are.
Very nice.
That's Libby. That's our oldest bald eagle.
That's your oldest, right?
Yeah, she was younger here. So was Joe, and that was when we were first doing programs at the Hyatt Regency Scottsdale that we now have a very nice partnership with. And again, and that's a girl now.
Beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, see, we don't just do birds; we do reptiles as well, and that's one of our king snakes.
King snakes.
Or I'm sorry, gopher snake. Sorry.
Is that poisonous?
They are not poisonous.
Oh,
They're
right.
great to have around. They'll get rid of a lot of rodents and things that you don't really want digging into your house.
Right.
That for you.
Right. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong way. Let me see if I can go.
That's okay. It's a great horn now.
Oh,
And that's doing a school program right there. That's at an education program at a school.
there you go.
Right. Okay.
That's one of our backdrops when we do these education programs.
A lot of children involved.
Again, we like to do a lot of the school programs because that's where you got to start it is young. Get that interest in our wildlife. That right here, that's a program at our open hours. That's one of our volunteers talking.
Nice.
We've been doing a book read with the little guys. And that's our wetlands right there that we have here. And, we stock it with fish and things. And that's one of the education cages. So as people walk along our trail, they can actually view the birds that are that we use for education or are on display. And again, that's I think a program at one of the community colleges. That would be a western screech owl.
That's beautiful. Wonderful.
Yeah,
Do they have very good night vision, these birds?
they have excellent vision.
Oh,
Your owls all have excellent vision at night.
Incredible.
That little guy's only about the size of your fist.
Oh, this one. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, that right there, that's a beautiful Aplomado falcon. And those guys right now are extricated from the United States. They're trying to make a comeback. They're doing a lot of breeding programs for these guys so that we can bring them back.
Right. Cassie Scott is asking, what is the population number for golden eagles in your area?
In Arizona or in general?
Well, maybe you can answer both. That's even better.
I don't know in general. I know in Arizona they've been doing a lot of studies right now on them, and there's a lot more nest sites, but we are declining in numbers of our golden eagles. And one of the studies that they found out is that golden eagles don't breed as readily as the bald eagles, that they actually sometimes go 1 or 2 years without breeding. So we have over 250 nests, but they don't see that many of them out there breeding right now. So their best guess, we have several hundred in the state.
Okay.
That's a black vulture.
Sorry, it is what? I couldn't understand that. Come again?
Black vulture.
Black vulture. Wow, beautiful.
They often follow the turkey vultures to find the food. The turkey vulture can pick up the smell of the rotting carcass up to 3 miles away. The black vulture follows those guys because they know they're finding the food easier.
Isn't that incredible? So the turkey vulture has such an incredible smell. You said about 3 miles, and then they follow them. Is there anything that this bird has that is superior to a turkey vulture in any way, or is it just?
They bully them.
Sorry.
They bully them. They
They bully them. Okay. There we go. Okay.
That's at the Willow Bend Nature Center in Flagstaff, where we do a bald eagle workshop day once a year, where we go up and the community comes in to learn about eagles. And that's the front of our facility here at Liberty Wildlife.
Beautiful, beautiful. What a beautiful. And
Walmart, they put up a lot of money to help us get this built.
right. So this picture.
That's our dust storm rolling into the valley.
Oh my goodness.
Displaces a lot of birds from their nesting area or gets them injured. The following day after we have one of these, we'll generally have a line of people out front with birds that have been displaced that they're finding on the ground.
Really? Okay.
It happens during the orphan season, so most of them are orphan babies that roll out of the nest, and there's no way to find the nest on some of those little doves and things like that that come in. And that is somebody in camo because it's a baby that needed medical attention. That's a peregrine falcon.
Beautiful.
And that's baby barn owls.
Baby barn owl. I've never seen one. Incredible.
They're probably those two right there are probably about 2 months old. And that's another burrowing owl. And you see has a little foot wrap and leg wrap on. And that one right there, that's a coatimundi. It's the desert raccoon, basically.
Ah, desert raccoon, right.
And that's a baby great horned owl. And that one's a juvenile red-tailed hawk.
Right, yes, yes, yes.
And there you go. That's the X-ray with the bright white that you see in there that's in the circles.
Yep.
That's all pellets.
Yes.
And that's a baby burrowing owl.
Right.
And that's a barn owl foster dad, and you can see the white fuzzy one behind it inside the nest box. And the mom is sitting there too, so they've got foster kids right there that they're taking care of.
Right.
And you can see that's all the tags. All the birds that come in, they get a stamped band to identify them, and then we put a tag out that matches that band, so we can keep track of all the birds that come in. And
each tag represents one bird in that case.
Right, yeah, I just see the comment here from Gretchen. She says black vultures frequently visit the northeast Florida nest during summer when the eagles are away. Yes, I've seen the black vultures in Florida. In how many states do you actually have black vultures in the U.S.?
They don't go up the center of the United States. They go along the East Coast and the West. So
right.
I'm not quite sure how far. Southern. Well, they go up to Ohio. Oh.
Okay, we're nearly through. We're nearly through. I know it's getting difficult now, but we've got about 10 images, and then we're finally through.
Okay, that right there is a Canada goose.
Yeah, Canada geese, right.
We typically have fishing line on those guys.
Yes.
That's hummingbirds. There's nothing cuter.
How many species of hummingbirds do you have in Arizona?
The most common two we get are the Annas.
And the Rufus, or
we have a lot of hummingbirds here. I don't know the exact number.
It's incredible. I love hummingbirds. That's why I'm asking, because I know in Texas they have about 27 different species. So I was wondering maybe Arizona has more. We only have 2 here, so.
Yeah, I don't think we have more than 27.
Oh wow.
That's a classic lead toxic case right there.
Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How many actually how many make it actually that come in with lead poisoning?
About half.
Half. Wow, that's quite good actually. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're administering fluids and stuff right there. And doing x-rays. And drawing blood.
Yes, yes, yes.
And then that's the high right there. That's our in-house lead machine. And
right.
That high means it's over 65, which is really high. And at that point, we send it into the lab to get the actual reading. And that's one of the programs we do with the Eagle Nest Watch team.
Very nice, very nice. Ah, that's a release. Yeah.
This is the release of the latest bald eagle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a release of another eagle. And there you go. There you can see the condor wingspan.
Very cute.
That's just a multifaceted amount of birds we have here.
Well, very nice. I think. Let me just put my picture in. So I think actually we've covered a lot, and I wanted to thank you so much for being here. I also wanted to say thank you from Nicole and our whole team. She said, please thank them from me and the team. Add Laura Hackett to it as well. So thank you very much to Nicole also for taking the effort to put this wonderful show together like this, and for us all to enjoy this. So thank you so much for all the efforts. We really appreciate there we get another final flight. That's really nice. So anyway, what I would like to do is, I've got very beautiful wildlife pictures of eagles. So Nicole will send you some of mine that you can print, and if you can pass them on, or you can sell them to others, I'm fine with that, as a donation. So I just wanted to say that. Okay.
Very much. No, this was great. Thanks for having us.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll talk to you in 5 minutes. So I'll just say goodbye to everyone, because I know you have other errands. So we won't do any phoning in today. We'll do that next time. So thank you again for being on the show. It's been really wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have a good night.
Okay, good night. Good night. Okay, so let me just see. I just got to get the picture out here. Yes, and final one. I think it's about time now for a glass of wine. So yeah, if we could only have a glass of wine coming. Oh my goodness, right in front of my face, there's a glass of wine coming in. Oh wow. I have a floating glass of wine in front of me. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, how many of you get a floating glass of wine? So there you go. So cheers to everyone, and thanks to my wonderful team, to Sasha, to Kevin for doing the phones, which we didn't use today, Jenny, Susie. Really wonderful. So just quickly to tell you, and thank you for tuning in. Thanks for all the donations. That's really been wonderful, and I hope you enjoy the weekend now. It's time to get some fresh air, to go out in nature and enjoy nature. I'll go and see our friend David Hancock tomorrow. And then I'm going on Sunday, I'm going to the aquarium. They've got this beautiful Vancouver aquarium, which is quite incredible. So I hope to go and broadcast one day directly from the Vancouver aquarium. It's a really marvelous facility. I wanted to say on Tuesday I'm flying to it's back to Australia. Yes, it's to Australia again. So I'm going to do astronomy in Australia, and I'll do some live broadcasting if I can, especially, of course, to the patrons and all the ones that support me. And thank you. I see North East Florida, I see Bobby's there, I see Gretchen. Thank you, Susie, Osprey Mama, Susan North, Maureen, and thank you for all the kind notes now, and cheers to all of you. Thanks to my team. So I'll be gone till I'm coming back on the 8th of October. I'll try and do some live shows if I can. In Australia, it's very busy for me. In Australia, I'm not up at nights. If I see some kangaroos, I'll do some live broadcast. And for those who are interested, my friends of patrons and so on, I will try and show you a bit of astronomy there and some wildlife. So it's all very exciting. So cheers to you. So I will now see, gosh, I got so many channels going and so many, see if I can disengage now. Let me try and first stop. So I'll first stop streaming now on YouTube. So thank you to all of you, and cheers.